Welcome to Witham Sounding Board, a podcast sharing powerful business tips, insights, and trends for those seeking to become a rock star in their industry.
Hello and welcome back to Witham's CFO podcast series. I'm your host, Cuddy Thomas, out of Witham's outsourced accounting and fractional CFO practice line. If you'd like to know more about what we do and how we support our clients, please go to www.witham.com/oasis. Joining me today is Gail Nelson. Gail is an accountant by trade. Started out with one of the Big Four. She had multiple finance leadership roles in the industry, one of which was where I met her. And now she's the founder and president of Rapid Cloud Partners, where they help companies scale with NetSuite and Salesforce. My discussion with Gail today will focus on how businesses can effectively scale and leverage software solutions to drive efficiency and success. Gail, how are you? It's really good to see you.
Good to see you too, Cuddy. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Glad to be here, talk about this exciting topic.
Of course. I'd like you to tell our listeners how everything started. Tell us about your journey and how digital transformation and new technologies, have changed it or had a role in it.
For sure. Happy to. Yeah. So as you said, I started my career at Ernst & Young many moons ago. I don't want to date myself, but got some great foundational experiences there. I actually worked in the audit department as well as the tax department for some period of time. I felt like you need to know a little bit about tax to be a well-rounded CPA, as it were. From there, as you said, I went into various positions in private companies, ultimately landed at a company called Fleetmatics. And I was the controller at Fleetmatics when we took the company public, which is quite a process. And that's where I found my passion for systems. We had gone public. It was a multi-subsidiary company, global, many, many countries that we did business in. We were consolidating the financial statements in NetSuite, which was great. But the underlying transactions for these businesses were being cared for in various systems: QuickBooks, Sage Intacct, Xero, depending on which country, and in disparate systems. So you can imagine what the data is there. And after going public, I said to the COO and the CFO, I said, we have got to put these processes into NetSuite. We're a public company, and I wanted to be able to produce those financial statements. For example, in QuickBooks, for one entity, we're producing 20,000 invoices a month off memorized transactions, crushing QuickBooks. With a high volume business, we needed to get off of that system. And so I did. I was earmarked then to lead the project. The company had tried to implement NetSuite a couple of times prior to my coming on board, and was not successful. And so I was given carte blanche in terms of resources, which is nice, and hired an outside firm to assist. The IT team was within the organization was also collaborating with me to make sure the project was successful. Ultimately, we were able to get the company up on NetSuite for reals, as I say, right? Operationally, not only just for consolidation. And it made a giant impact, not only to the accounting team, right? We had all the operations in there, fulfillment, support, et cetera. And so it really created such a massive change to the organization overall. That's where I got the bug. And what I saw in there was that, it's not just about the accounting. You have to look at every cog in the wheel. And so looking upstream to Salesforce, which the company used, and understanding where that data is coming from was really critical. So that's where I got my bug, not only for NetSuite as a whole and systems, but also for understanding processes and connecting to systems. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And I speak for I think it was a year and a half or 2 years that I supported your accounting team, just dealing with pulling things from SageQuest. It's funny you mentioned that name, both different system, and it just takes a while to do everything. And if the exit was to go public, even an M&A transaction, you have to be able to be nimble and be quick and make sure you can get data to whoever needs it timely, right?
Exactly. So from there, Cuddy, that's where I got my bug. And I went on, we were acquired by Verizon after we went public a couple of years later. I helped and stayed Verizon in the Connect division with the SAP S/4HANA Cloud implementation, which was very interesting. But, I missed my NetSuite Salesforce, and I liked the smaller organizations, mid-sized organizations better, where you could make real impact. So I founded Rapid Cloud Partners in 2019. And we help clients, identify their requirements for CRMs and ERPs, and we help them with integration strategy, data, et cetera. We are based across the United States, a remote organization, but we have clients globally. We have clients in EMEA and in the United States. So we love what we do. We tend to really shine when the client has complex needs. So a lot of our consultants have an accounting background or a business background. Most, if not all, of my consultants have worked in the seats of our clients, meaning before they became consultants, they had jobs in either operations, finance, et cetera. And so we bring that experience to the table. We're not just, when we talk about a best practice, we've been there, done that. So we global companies with, a lot of global accounting needs, localization, as well as RevRec. RevRec is a huge need. So we do a lot of software companies or IoT companies that may have hardware that, grabs data that fulfills that software platform with information that their customers can use, right? So that gets very complex when you're tying all that together from a data perspective and doing the accounting for the revenue, as it can get quite complex. That's kind of where we shine.
Good. And obviously, with all that, you still face challenges as you go, right? And then sometimes it's hard to be able to get that point across to companies or even people sitting at the C-suite to sort of understand the need. In that case, there's also challenges in just try to get it through them, right? So can you speak to like key challenges like business face when trying to scale, and how can they overcome them in a short and long term?
Sure, absolutely. So, we help companies that either have a need for a new system, CRM or ERP, and we help them evaluate that, right? Or we help them with an existing ERP or CRM and improve those processes. So some of the key challenges that we see quite a bit, of course, are manual processes, things that are being done manually over and over. Imagine a sea of bodies out there, processing these transactions that, really are ripe for automation. So that's a key point for me with any CFO, CIO that I speak to. Tell me what your people are doing and what they're doing in a system versus outside of a system. If there are a lot of manual processes, particularly time consuming, that aren't just, taking an hour a month, then we should be talking, right? In addition, I find that I love accountants. I'm an accountant at heart. You're an accountant at heart, I think. But accountants love Excel. They do not leverage necessarily the functionality that a system may offer. So for instance, they may have their fixed assets or their prepaid still sitting in those Excel spreadsheets, right? And they love adding things to that. But that creates complication. We try to encourage customers to tap into the system functionality to automate that process, right? It can reduce human error, formula errors, removes the need to reconcile, right, between your accounting system and that spreadsheet. So spreadsheets, I call it Excel gymnastics, right? Eliminate the Excel gymnastics if possible. Siloed team members, we see this, you've got one group that's in charge of, buying, let's say, the CRM and coming up with strategy and the implementation of that. You've got a separate team that's in charge of the ERP, maybe another team that's in charge of the proprietary platform. It's a software company. And there's no discussion between them. Well, these things need to work together, right?
Right.
You have data that's being captured in your CRM that ultimately needs to be used in the ERP to either fulfill an order, to bill an order, to collect the money on that order, right? Take revenue, et cetera. And so a lot of times I find that that's a challenge, right? You've got various groups that aren't communicating, working together. So as a C-level executive, when I speak to them, I really encourage them to collaborate, with the other areas and functions, and get that sort of symbiotic path, because you'll get a much better design and product and go forward architecture if you do so. Last but not least, a lack of an integration strategy, right? I'm a huge fan Enter data once and that's it, right? It should push from one place to another where people need it. Yeah. So lack of an integration and data strategy, I'd say. There are many types of ways to integrate. Back when I was a controller for the first time, out of Ernst & Young, we were very concerned about integration. Oh my goodness, what could happen if we integrated the data? Well, integrations are easier than they used to be, right? You have a lot of vendors, right? Software platforms that have pre-built connectors to maybe to your CRM or your ERP, for instance. We have iPaaS solutions, integration platform as a service. We implement that all the time. They're great tools where you can easily push and initiate transactions between platforms. And you can have various endpoints and not have to, build sort of custom integrations, right? Which is what we try to avoid. Last case, you have that. So really thinking through, where is my data, in which systems, who needs to have it, who can update it, and in which system, and then determining what that strategy is for the integration to get the data from here to there is really important. And I find that companies do not look that
Mm-hmm.
holistically. Do some prompting. So that's one of the conversations we have in usually our introductory calls.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Can you share an example that obviously you're comfortable sharing, that a company that scales successfully but strategically using the right cloud and automation technologies?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So key challenges we see with a lot of our clients is they're still doing their revenue recognition in Excel, right?
Oh, I remember that file.
Oh, you've seen that file. I think this
Yeah,
year's
I've seen that
DataQuest, a company we acquired years ago. We called that the Beast model. Well, I see them all the time, by the way. And it's usually a revenue model or it's a consolidation workbook. So I probably have a zillion examples of both of these. But, typically, again, as I said, there's a lot of data captured in the CRM that is needed downstream to make sure orders are fulfilled properly, but also appropriately billed. So, you've got to have your ERP team work with your CRM team to, make sure that A, they're capturing the data you need, and B, it's protected. So we did this with a public client. I won't mention the name, an IoT business. They had a software platform, and there's equipment that sort of goes into the equation to capture data that, goes into the software platform that the end users can, go online and consume and use.
Right.
In any case, they had Salesforce and they had NetSuite as their primary business systems, as well as a proprietary platform and some other tools as well, e-commerce platform, I believe. And we came in and helped them, first of all, evaluate their whole lead to cash process. Everyone likes to talk about lead to quote and order to cash, but in my mind, they're really tied together because one feeds the other. And so we evaluated their processes. We evaluated the tools they were using. We evaluated their integration and decided that A, they needed a different integration platform that met their needs better. B, they needed another tool that plugged into NetSuite to care for recurring billing. We used a 360 subscription billing for that particular project. Mm-hmm. And we plugged that in. It's a native NetSuite app. Sits right in NetSuite, which was great. And then we helped them configure advanced revenue management within NetSuite, the ERP, to care for all that RevRec. And we eliminated, I think it took them days and days and days in Excel to do the work, right, prior to coming in. And we were able to automate majority of the recurring billing. I've always say there's a hairball here or there, or a weird, crazy use case that you'll have to touch manually, but focus on the majority first and get the oddballs later. But we have streamlined their billing process. They all come out automatically. From a RevRec perspective, we're able to automate that as well and eliminate all those Excel spreadsheets and reviews. So hugely beneficial. In addition, we tied in some collections work, right? Making sure that the statements and the dunning notices were, tailored to their needs and on point, and being able to earmark certain what I call white glove treatment customers that would never get a dunning notice, right? We all know that companies have them. And you don't want to call from the CEO, why did my customer A, my super important customer A, get this notice? And now they're unhappy. So we design processes and systems where, the appropriate collection activities happen, are recorded, and then are reported to management, which is really helped them not only from an accounting perspective, but a cash flow perspective. The last element of that one that I think was extremely important for them was in the past, their Salesforce team members, were flying blind on a lot of things, or they were given very expensive licenses into NetSuite to do their jobs. And so I like to ensure that the people are working in their requisite system, right? CRM typically for sales and marketing, right? ERP for your operations, fulfillment, finance folks, et cetera. And we were able to pass information with the new integration and design such that they could eliminate some user licenses from the NetSuite side that were not needed for people that primarily work in CRM. And so that was a huge win, be able to pass back key information, maybe invoice summary information, invoice status, right? That type of thing. Sensitive, of course.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
That's really good. I do like the idea of making sure that the right people have the right access and people that don't need access from a bucket perspective in NetSuite don't have it. That's good. So my next question would be, all this good stuff, sometimes business tend to delay investing in technology, right?
Yeah.
But in your experience, which you think with Sage Quest and Informatics, we thought that should have been done way earlier, right?
Well, for sure, 100%.
When is the right time for a company to implement new software?
Yeah. Well, I would say the obvious time that people, think of it, right? CFOs think of it is, when they're getting new funding or, there's some M&A activity happening or they want to go for an IPO, right? Or they're issuing new product. And those are the obvious ones. Obviously, those are the times you should be evaluating what your systems are, your processes, and make sure they're meeting your needs. Mm-hmm. Of course, if you expect growth or you're scaling, right, and your tools cannot keep up, really that's, the one where I think a lot of companies, let's just keep going, we've got other priorities. And then before they know it, things are so efficient, they can't get the reports they need, right, or the data, compiled sometimes in a timely fashion, right? A month-end close is only good if it happens in a timely fashion and you can give that information to your executive team for key decision-making. So I would say if you're scaling, if you've got a major shift in your business, like I said, M&A, IPO, new product line, new geo would be an example, right? You're going to a new geography. And maybe last but not least, if you're struggling with some sort of compliance need or audit readiness, we hear this a lot. Get a call from a prospect or even a prospect that says, hey, our audit didn't go so well for revenue last year. Maybe they're, using a great tool, but it's not set up properly. And so the result they're getting from their RevRec is not right. And then they're band-aiding it with a topside entry, Cuddy. I hear that all the time. Something they calculated in Excel and they book a topside entry, which, makes my heart sink. So yeah, things like that. You're band-aiding things. You need to scale. You're not meeting compliance needs. Those would be key times to reach out.
Yeah. It's obviously one of the misconceptions. It's too expensive. But what, outside of that, what the biggest misconceptions and the lessons learned by business leaders by adopting new technology and software, and how can they upskill 2025 and beyond?
Sure. I'll tell you the number one misconception or lesson I think I see. We hear from a lot of prospects and clients that, they went and put in NetSuite. It's just going to solve all the problems, or the ERP or the CRM. It doesn't matter. They put in a new system and technology is going to solve the problem. Well, the reality is it's not the technology, right? It is the design of the processes and the leveraging of those tools, right? That is critical to the success of any, project. So the technology needs to be there. Really, it's the process and the design of that process that will determine how successful it is. Now, that process, I always say, devil's in the data, okay? You can design the best process and in the best technology tool you've ever been on earth. But if the data isn't clean, cut over or not clean thereafter, you're going to have a terrible experience and you're not going to be able to either perform your functions or report properly. So technology isn't a, fix it all. You've got to invest in design and you've got to invest in clean data. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a classic,
Oh,
I think that people will say garbage in, garbage out.
yes, exactly. And the other thing I say is an ERP and a CRM implementation are never done. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Your
right.
business continues to evolve. They think it's done at go live. Well, that's not the case, right?
Right.
You are always going to be maybe bringing out a new product or going into a new geography or having an org change. Maybe, this group is being merged with that group. And so there's always going to have to be a reevaluation of how you tap into a system and what those processes are. And so, once those systems go live, you do still need some assistance. What we do for our clients, we do have managed service contracts, right, for providing that system admin capability, particularly to smaller customers who can't afford maybe a full-time system admin, or we supplement. Maybe they do have a full-time system admin or part-time system admin. We supplement with coming to help them with more complex things. And if in that process we identify maybe something that should be an enhancement, we'll draw that out and bring it to the key stakeholders or management and say, hey, listen, this is something that we're seeing. This is probably an enhancement given some changes here that we should go back and look at your design.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, really good stuff. Yeah, I totally agree that the system reassessment is necessary every now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got another one. You know me, I've always got things to say.
Sure.
So another thing that we find is a misconception is that, you have to customize everything to how you work today. So
Yeah.
we go into a new project for, a greenfield implementation, meaning from scratch, or to an improvements project, even someone's in the system and we're helping them improve it. A lot of people are, we're creatures of habit. They're used to doing things the way they're used to doing it. And so we very astutely listen to their requirements and how they're doing it in the current process. We then use that information and translate it to, hey, here's the tool they've got and what could be a better way to do that. And so a lot of companies say, I couldn't possibly go in a system because ours is so unique. Well, that's generally not the case, right? There is a way to do it within a system. Now, we may need to tweak a few things, and customizations aren't as scary as they used to be, right? Mm-hmm. You can, tweak things fairly quickly with custom fields and forms and objects and really get some power in these ERP and CRM systems today. So don't be afraid of customization, and no, you don't need customization to fix all your needs.
Very good. Well, well put. Gail, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise. It's been really fun having you on. And for someone that's an accountant now, heavily into tech and system, which is good. I had the pleasure of working with Gail, and I've seen her live in action. So
you team appreciate the props. Yeah.
Of course. So we talked about importance of strategic scaling, financial and operational considerations for growth, and how modern systems can streamline and enhance business success. This essentially ends our conversation with Gail today. If you'd like to know what we do for a client and how we support our clients, please go to www.william.com/oasis. And that's spelled OASYS. Thank you again, Gail, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cuddy.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you'll be first in line to hear what's coming next. Don't want to wait for our next episode? Check us out at withum.com. That's WITHUM.com.